Hello fellow cinephiles, the Film Dude here, thanks for joining me today. So today I'll be looking at a new film that came out that is very interesting, that subverts the horror genre and does something really different, unique, and it's definitely one of the most original films I've seen in a while, and probably this year. Today I'm reviewing Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. This was written and directed by Jane Skollenborn, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and starred Gillian Anderson, Anna Einbinder, and Jack Haven and Patrick Fischner in supporting roles. And the film follows filmmaker Chris Williams, played by Hannah Einbinder, who is hired to direct a new installment of the slasher franchise known as Camp Miasma, and eventually becomes fixated on casting the actress played by Gillian Anderson, Billy Presley, who played the final girl in the original film. I was a bit hesitant to go and see this film. I saw that it had really good reviews and people were kind of raving about it, and it kind of intrigued me a little bit. But even though I liked aspects of Jane's previous film, I didn't really love I Saw the TV Glow. The ending frustrated me. I didn't quite understand what it was going for. I had to later read what they were going for, which made sense in the end, but I just found the film overall a bit frustrating. But in hindsight, maybe they did that on purpose to make you feel that way. And this film has aspects of it. But it wasn't until I saw a review from YouTuber Spooky Astronauts that I kind of was like, okay, she makes good points. Let's check this film out. And I must admit, I was so shocked and surprised how much I enjoyed this film. I liked it a lot. It just hooked me in from the beginning. I think partly had to do with the fact that I'm a huge slasher fan, and I like movies that sort of talk about that. And I do like meta films, you know, like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and movies like that where they take the idea of something fictional and bring it into the real world. And that's kind of what this film does in a way. I think the whole story itself is fascinating. The idea that there is these sort of films out, this franchise out there called Camp Miasma that has a killer known as Little Death, and that's sort of very strongly based on Friday the 13th. And I like that. There's multiple sequels and the idea of reboots, and it's very meta and sort of on the nose sometimes with sort of describing the filmmaking world and dealing with executives and producers and trying to shape and change something that's been known, and the idea of remakes and how the remakes can sort of destroy what the franchise has created for itself. And there are many references to horror films in this film, with Friday the 13th. Sleepaway Camp, yeah, to a point. It serves a purpose, but isn't hugely focused on in the film, just in the great sequences with Jack Haven, who I think is really great. They're a fantastic actor, and I like what they do in this film, and all their scenes are probably my favourite. Sort of all the backstory of who Little Death is, I like that. Like you would like the backstory of Jason Voorhees. But what felt stronger in it to me, that no one's really mentioned, it is mentioned in the film, but the film to me that this feels most like is Sunset Boulevard. Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard. Billy Wilder's film about a recluse actress living hidden away, who was a famous known actress in her day, but now is repelled from society and lives in this sort of big abandoned house, and a screenwriter comes into her life to try and find inspiration to write a good script, and they sort of have this unique and interesting relationship, and how everything transpires and goes a bit dark. That's exactly kind of what this film does, but a horror version. Billy Presley was in a famously known actress in a horror film that spawned many sequels that she didn't come back for, and lives reclusively up in the mountains. And then you've got this young filmmaker, much like William Holden's screenwriter, And she comes into this particular person's world, fascinated by them, trying to craft something creative out of their relationship that is formed throughout the film. And I just think this is a big inspiration for it. It just feels like that. Not a lot of people are mentioning that in reviews. Like, it is mentioned in the film itself. But I just felt that was the biggest inspiration for it. And it made sense to me that. And if you haven't seen Sunset Boulevard, definitely check it out. It's definitely one of the great films of the 50s. But it's just the aesthetic to the film. Like I Saw TV Glow, there's a great and cool vibe. It's a slow burn film. It takes its time to tell its story, to build the connections between the two lead characters, Billy and Chris, and talk about and sort of set up what is going to transpire. It is very meta. Close to being comical meta. But this film is classified as a comedy as well, so it does have sort of that odd, quirky humour. Actress Hannah Hinebinder is really, really good. She's quirky and unique and different. I know that she was in a series, I think Hacks. I haven't seen that. This is my first sort of experience with her as an actress, and I think she's great. She's quirky and unique and different. She reminds me of sort of those indie actresses and indie queens that we saw in the 90s. And I really like what she does with the film. I love the Chris Williams character, that she's sort of this aspiring filmmaker, but there's all of these sort of things and all these tropes that the producers wanted to do, and she's trying to break free of that and find her own identity in it, and find her own identity in it. I really like that aspect to it. And I just like the journey that character goes on and where that character ends up at the end of the film and what transpires for him. It's really fascinating, and she gives a really great performance. Gillian Anderson's fantastic. Like, I've known Gillian Anderson since X-Files. I've been a big fan of her as an actress, but it's been her later years, recent years, where she's sort of really going out and doing really unique and different roles. She was great on the TV show Sex Education. She's appeared in a few other films and other things, and she's always an actress that seems to be having fun and crafts really interesting, colourful and entertaining characters. And she does that once again here. She's fantastic. She's able to take the Billy character and make her sort of off kilter, a bit odd and scary, and then sort of do this odd laugh in the middle of nowhere. And she kind of feels like a character that's not necessarily crazy, but it shows a person. It emphasizes that idea of a person living a reclusive life, having no one to talk to and living that sort of life, and then interacting with someone they don't sort of, and then interacting with another person that they haven't done for a long time brings out a quirkiness and oddness to them. And I think Gillian Anderson really captures that really well. I like the way the film's shot. I love the use of music. And all the sequences with Little Death, I love. I absolutely love what Jack Haven brings to that. They are a really fascinating actor that adds a little bit of depth in a creative way. And that's what the film feels like. It starts off like a sort of normal sort of horror movie or a slasher film. We're introduced to the characters, the location, and then the story itself and what is meant to transpire or what they're working towards. And then it sort of shifts. Probably halfway to the end or the last 30 minutes or third act of the movie, it shifts into this really fun and over-the-top and entertaining sort of meta take on slasher films and the tropes of that particular genre. And it is probably the best part of the film. I like the movie overall. I like the slow burn-ness, the unique and unsettling vibe that it had. I really liked. But it's the third act and the ending that I really loved. It amped it up and did it creatively. And yeah, like it does sort of, not necessarily beat you over the head, but it does sort of bring up things a number of times to talk about how meta it is and the state of filmmaking and the film world. But it does it in a way that's engaging enough that you don't mind it does it multiple times. There is an interesting concept in it, the perspective of the killer, going into the mind of the killer, experiencing things for the first time. And it's like correlation, and its connection with the idea of sexual awakenings, obsession, and just sort of trying to make sense of the world that doesn't make sense to them, being exposed to things too young and the effect that that has on them, and just about how that whole experience and experiences shape them as human beings. And this sort of tries to address that and look at the Chris character and what their character's been through, and the connection that she has with Camp Miasma, and how she really wants to experience something. And that's kind of what the film goes into. It's a film that, even though I've touched on certain things, it's hard to talk about. It's better to experience. Going in not knowing too much about it. The trailer doesn't give too much away, but maybe try and not think of the trailer too much for the film. And just sort of go into it and just let it wash over you. Unfortunately, it's a film that, even though it has high reviews and people are loving it, I don't think it's going to do really well because it is unique. It's a niche. It fits within a particular type of movie that some people really like and some don't. It's not going to be for everyone, but people who like this sort of films, like this sort of genre, and like something that's a bit different, they'll enjoy it. And like I mentioned, this is probably the most different film I've seen this year, which is saying a lot since we've had really good horror films, and how they're taking their concepts in them and subverting them. Like, I think this has a lot of similarities with Backrooms, not story, character, or movie-wise, but just in expressing certain things, experiencing things, and taking something we may have seen 100 times and doing something refreshing with it, or trying to anyway. In a year that's been filled with movies and has just felt like January all year long, it just feels horror has reigned supreme, and the last few films that have come out in the last couple of months have been really impressive, and this is definitely one of them. The only negatives I will say about it is it drags a little in the center, just a little bit, and like I mentioned, it sort of reiterates a lot of things multiple times. But besides that, it's a really great and unique take on the slasher genre and the horror genre, and it is really asking questions, talking about characters' experiences, and seeing the impact of things on them and how that shapes them as people, but also talking about feeling trapped or not experiencing things that everyone else does and enjoying them in the way other people do. I think Jane is a fascinating filmmaker. I look forward to seeing what they do next, and I'm really impressed with what unfolded for me with this experience of this film, and so surprised that I enjoyed it in the way I did. But that's all I really wanted to talk about. It's, like I said, go on to see it yourself, let it wash over you. If you have seen it, put in the comments below what you thought of it. And yeah, I just think it's worthy of checking out, and it has stayed on my mind since I've seen it, and it is going on my top 10 of the year because I just think it's a great film. Anyway, that's it from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Letterboxd and Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.